And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. Thank you to all of you that are listening to this wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, Stitcher. But guess what? If you want to come and get this multi-platform excellence, we're also on YouTube, youtube.com/cover3. Go and give us a subscribe right there, and you'll just have it in your feed. It'll be right there, always suggested for you, because I will always suggest that you come and check us out. That's Tom Pernelli. That's Danny Kanell. That's Barton Simmons. A lot to get to today. We've got some breaking and developing news out of the Wisconsin Badgers program. We get to see the Florida Gators back in action, sort of a reminder that this top team SEC championship contender is in the mix as we look down the road to them taking on our beloved Dogs. We had a big high profile recruiting news break over the weekend. Early line looking ahead to some of the biggest lines coming up in week 9. And though he requested that it was not going to be included, we made promises to you, the audience. We will not get out of this podcast without some Noles to go with Danny Kanell checking in on the pulse of Florida State after a disappointing effort in Louisville, Papa John Cardinal Stadium. So the breaking news first. Friday night, world taken by storm. Graham Mertz comes out, near perfect performance. This Wisconsin offense humming against Illinois. It is not just an offense that is going to be relying on whoever can step up in the wake of Jonathan Taylor. I mean, Nikhil Watson played pretty well, I thought, but the headline was without a doubt the way that Mertz had played for 248 passing yards, 5 touchdowns. Again, the efficiency was incredible, but then news breaks on Sunday. According to, I believe, the State Journal, it's going to be our first report, and then confirmed by CBS Sports' Dennis Dodd, Graham Mertz tested positive for COVID-19 and is currently awaiting confirmation from a second test. So there's the way the Big Ten has been doing this has been daily testing. Remember, that was like one of the things that the Big Ten pointed to. They said, we're going to be testing every single day with this antigen test. And then there's a PCR test as a follow-up to confirm any positive test. If that positive test is confirmed, according to Big Ten protocol, that's going to be out for 21 days. So that is going to absolutely be at the top of the list of concerns for any Wisconsin fan right now. I think there's a couple different ways to approach this, or at least that I'm interested in getting into. Number one, the Wisconsin side of things. Number two, it's the first high-profile examination of the Big Ten and its COVID-19 protocols. So I guess first, like Barton, on the Wisconsin side of this, we already know that we don't have Jack Cohn, and we were already down to Graham Mertz, so we were a little skeptical about that. And then he wowed us. Like how do you see the Badgers if Mertz is found to have a confirmed positive COVID-19 test? What's the outlook here? How do we change our expectations for this team?
I think, I don't know. Like, I don't want to be too pessimistic because Wisconsin just, they tend to find a way. They tend to just sort of have an idea of how to be successful, how to figure out how to win. I mean, Chase Wolf, I guess, would be the next man up. I don't think he's as good as Graham Mertz. Remember, Graham Mertz was a legit 4-star guy. I mean, I think we've talked about that. I mean, he was not a game manager in the traditional sense that Wisconsin's used to having over the last few years. So that he went out there and blew it up was not totally unexpected. I mean, this guy that had 5 in the All-American Bowl on NBC. So I think that the bigger question I have is, when you look at the Wisconsin game against Illinois, they averaged sack-adjusted 3.8 yards per carry on the ground. Like, that's not great. And Graham Mertz was really good and really efficient. And so if they get another 3.8 yards a carry kind of game, is Chase Wolf good enough? I think maybe, the way I envision Wisconsin is this: all right, we're going to hunker down and win with defense and not let the offense beat us. Probably wasn't the way this season was playing out, because Graham Mertz is so capable at quarterback and they have enough weapons at tight end and elsewhere to threaten defenses. But with Chase Wolf at quarterback, maybe that does become the approach. Let's shorten these games, win with defense. I just can't imagine they're going to try to put too much on Chase Wolf's plate.
Yeah, I'm not super. I mean, it sucks. It's not good. It definitely hurts Wisconsin's ceiling as far as if we want to look at it from, because they do have games against Nebraska next week. So if he's out 21 days, he's going to miss the Nebraska game. He's going to miss the Purdue game. He's going to miss the road game against Michigan. Those are 3 games you'd obviously like to have Mertz back for. But I don't think it hurts him that much because, like what Barton was saying, it's not like Wisconsin doesn't know how to survive with a game manager type of player at quarterback. It's what they've been built on. It's what they've thrived on. And as far as them not being able to run the ball against Illinois, that's a concern, except, last year, even with Jonathan Taylor, they only averaged 3.6 yards per carry against Illinois. The way that Illinois defends Wisconsin, they've been able to slow the running game down. They want Wisconsin to beat them through the air, and Wisconsin had a quarterback this time around that was able to do it. So I think they're still going to be able to run the ball against other teams. I think that we're still going to see a Wisconsin team in a Big Ten West that, frankly, wasn't all that impressive this weekend, besides Wisconsin dominating Illinois and Northwestern's domination of Maryland. When you looked around the rest of the division, Purdue and Iowa was not exactly a, exciting game to watch. Purdue came out with the win. Minnesota, we'll probably be talking about a little bit here later. They're missing a lot of key players, and we don't know how long they're going to be without those guys. And they looked pretty subpar against Michigan on Saturday night. And then, who am I forgetting here? Purdue, Iowa,
Northwestern. You mentioned them too.
It's just the entire division really didn't look all that great. So I feel like this is something that Wisconsin can withstand. It's just, it does make the Nebraska and the Michigan game a little more difficult, but I still think they're capable of beating Nebraska. Michigan, maybe not.
I think it sucks. I think that's the bottom line, because when I was watching Wisconsin play on Friday night, I was thinking, man, this is the biggest difference maker we've seen since Russell Wilson at Wisconsin. This is not your father's Wisconsin quarterback, right? This is a guy who was out there, and not only did he produce with the way he threw the ball, but he also had something about him. Like it was cocky. Like it was confidence, borderline cocky, which is a good thing. Like I think you have to have that. And he wasn't overwhelmed by the moment. He brought an element to that team that you don't typically see. So in my mind, I was thinking not only just division winners, but this team has gotten chances in the Big Ten championship before. I was thinking big picture, like, hey, how good could this team be? Like maybe this is a team that could give Ohio State a run for their money. And either way, maybe it's the best case scenario for the Big Ten, because if Wisconsin's better, it makes Ohio State's case, or whoever the representative from the other side is, better and a stronger resume to get into the playoff, which may or may not come into play. But I was thinking, man, this team looks completely different. Now without him, it'd be one thing if Jack Cohn was fine. Like if you could fall back on an experienced starter. Now we're going 3 deep on the roster. Now it becomes even more hard. They're going to challenge you even more. They're going to get 8 guys in the box and say, go ahead, we dare you. And I know they've figured out ways to win, but if you slip up once, who knows what could happen? Purdue did beat Iowa. Michigan's going to be a much tougher game. And I know it doesn't matter for the division, but it's still, I thought Wisconsin had a chance with Mertz to maybe run the table and like do something special. And now that it's gone, it's like, ugh. And I will say this, I think the Big Ten, I wish they would. I think the 21 days, and I said this the minute they came out with the policy, I think it's too stringent. I think it's too strict. It's well beyond the CDC guidelines, even what they recommend. And I know it's for the myocarditis. They want to do the extra time to do cardiac tests. But I'm telling me an SEC coach or even Ryan Day would be quiet if he lost Justin Fields for 3 weeks. I guarantee you he'd be pounding the table saying, well, hold on a second. Wait, let's reevaluate this. And I think it probably could be done. A lot of professional sports have readjusted their protocols on the fly. And I know this is different. I don't think the Big Ten does, because I think this was a compromise they had to make in order to play the games actually. But I think it's going to come back to bite them. I think this might be the first one that actually cost the program, a potential Big Ten championship game spot. Like who knows what it cost them, but without him for 3 weeks, I think it's going to hurt this team.
Graham Mertz did not get the that as a quarterback of Wisconsin, you're supposed to be sheepish and apologetic for being the starting quarterback. You are not supposed to be confident and swaggy And Barry Alvarez made a call to the medical department, said somebody needs to compromise his COVID sample. This guy is entirely too flashy. Let's get him off the field for 21 days. Let him think about what he's done. This is a run team first. I agree with you, Danny. Like, this was all we always assumed that this was going to bite the Big Ten at some point, and it's a shame that Graham Mertz in Wisconsin gets bit the first here. Like, I was thinking, and we talked about, I mean, all this stuff, it's hard to know what is necessary, what isn't. We're all guessing to a certain degree. But in the SEC, you can make a case. Remember, I gave, in the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12, some of this is like, I gave a case of a school's contact tracing protocol, which is like 14 days in the hole, basically. And it's
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
Not the frozen screen.
Barry Alvarez just hit the button on Barton.
Yeah, that's right. You disappeared there for a second, bud.
Froze up on us.
Oh, shoot.
All right. Start over at
Barry Alvarez.
I gave the example.
Okay. Well, so I gave the example, another contact tracing protocol. Like in other conferences, you may be better off getting COVID from a purely like ability to play standpoint than getting a contact tracing flag, because you're literally in the hole for 14 days versus, you can kind of test out of the COVID issue. So it's just going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out in the Big Ten, because 21 days is, especially for a no bye week 8-game season, like, it's ridiculous. It's unsustainable, really.
And they've got no contact tracing, right? Like the Big Ten.
Okay, so is that the trade-off we have?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That is daily testing with really strict protocols for positive tests, but you don't have the same contact tracing protocols where you have to determine what close contact is, 6 feet, 15 minutes, and you don't have the isolation that is required if you are found to be a close contact. With the theory being, we're testing every single person every single day, and we've got this other protocol that kicks into gear if you are a positive. So therefore, we don't need to go to these extra lengths in terms of the isolation.
But again, 21 days is literally 37.5% of the season.
It's a lot.
Also on the Big Ten protocol side of this, it doesn't seem like Wisconsin is not going to release any names of positive tests. And it certainly seems, based on the way things went with Minnesota going into that Michigan game, that was very much last minute. We're not going to say yes or no if some of these absences are COVID related or not. Is anybody else feeling? I mean, I was already terrified as it is after seeing those garbage time unders getting crushed. Like, is anybody else terrified of the Big Ten's? Is it any more or less intimidating to approach a Big Ten lock with the same kind of confidence, not knowing how things are going to go in terms of player availability?
No, because it's not. We don't know. We don't get the reasons why, but we know why. And it's not all that different from what we're dealing with everywhere else. It's just, again, like we've been talking about since the beginning of the season, just don't do anything until shortly before kickoff or after kickoff. Although I will say, as I told you guys in the text thread, I did break my own rule yesterday when the Graham Mertz news broke and I saw Nebraska sitting there at plus 11. I might have jumped on and taken Nebraska plus 11, and that line is now down to about 7.5 last I checked. So maybe you can make a special exemption every once in a while, but I am also living dangerously, because come Saturday, we might find out Nebraska's entire offensive line is out. Who knows?
Well, I mean, are y'all still feeling good? You feel like this is just college football in general? This is just the game that we play?
What we signed up for, boys. I don't want to hear any complaining.
Everybody's got the same issues. Everybody's dealing with it.
All right. Speaking of COVID protocols, the Florida Gators are back in action, back at practice. They had, we had the game postponements and then the continued positive tests that came out of Gainesville, including head coach Dan Mullen, resulted in the whole program. We're just shutting everything down for the entire weekend. They are scheduled to be back in action against Missouri. It feels a little bit unfair and a little bit of a stretch to think that I should feel any differently about this Florida team, but it's almost human nature. Same thing happened with Oklahoma State, where it's like you just sort of disappear from the picture, even for a couple weeks. I almost feel a little bit less enthusiastic about you. But as the Gators are coming back, and again, as I mentioned earlier, with the Georgia game on the horizon, are you welcoming Florida back in? Are you able to get jazzed up about the Super Swamp Brothers and about Florida's chances to win the SEC East? I mean, Gator Danny, you sticking to your prediction that this is going to be the year that they get back to the SEC championship game, even with the kind of disruption that they've had over the last couple weeks?
I am, but I'm nervous about it. I'm stubborn to a fault. Like, I'm still sticking to what I believed, which is Florida's offense will be enough firepower to get through Georgia. Georgia's offense still has a long way to go. But at the same time, I'm like, what have the past 2 weeks looked like for Florida? Because my hunch is kind of like Barton's story. Everybody quarantined, everybody hunkered down, maybe do some Zoom meetings. I don't know. Are they able to do any work? Are they able to, like, I'm picturing guys shut down. Like, this is what we have to do to survive this. And if that's the case, it's going to take some time to ramp things back up again. And yeah, it's Missouri, but that game has me nervous. You know, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to get. Like, you could be a little bit off. Guys could be out of shape. Like, there's a a fourth quarter element. Like, hey, are you that much better than Missouri? I don't know. So there's absolutely some trepidation for this game. I feel a little bit better that they've got the week kind of to use this Missouri game. Doesn't matter what the score is. They can win by 1 point. It's all that matters that they win. And then they'll be able to face Georgia the following week. But yeah, I don't feel great. I'm kind of curious to see what they'll show up like.
Yeah, Florida players have been penned up in hotel rooms for 2 weeks, whereas the alpha nerd's been in the lab cooking up a game plan to get ready for the Gators.
I don't want to make any accusations, but does Dan Mullen strike you as the type of coach that's going to really toe the line and stick to these contact tracing protocols by the letter of the law? Or maybe he's getting over to my old high school and having
I was going to say, what's the local high school that's been getting the Super Swamp Brothers have been leading player-led workouts?
Well, and that's also like, kind of bringing in the Titans conversation. I was curious what they'd look like, and they did go under the radar and did have these practices, and they looked fine. They had one of the most surprising upsets of the season when they beat the Bills at home and looked awesome. But I don't know, that's an NFL team, and I just wonder, much like what happened with Tennessee, you saw like that news came out. I think it's impossible to keep things under wraps because you've got people snooping around. I think that would get some player would say something, somebody would find out. I think there's got to be some sort of reality that clicks in, no matter how much you want to toe the line, is, oh my goodness, we have this many players, 30 plus players. I can't let this spiral out of control. If I lose 20 more, this might jeopardize the whole season. There's got to be that element that scares you a little bit into saying, well, we have no choice, but we have to shut down, put these players in hotels, and we can't come back for 2 weeks, until we're in the clear.
I mean, that's what I think you've got to be, especially at this point in the season, you've got to be dramatic because you just don't want to have anything impact the Georgia game.
Right.
That's without a doubt got to be the number one concern. All right, we're going to do the early line look ahead, some of the thoughts on the weekend's lines in a little bit. But since we're on the topic, Gators 13-point favorites Saturday night in the swamp. Feel a little steep for the alpha nerd.
I ain't touching it.
I mean, it's not even like, for me, my initial reaction to that is it's not even just like the layoff. It's just, what did we see from the Florida defense that really makes you want to trust them to cover that spread right now? But I don't know, because it's the alpha nerd is the alpha nerd, but Missouri's still Missouri, and the Super Swamp Brothers are still the Super Swamp. I don't know, man. I have to dive in a little further.
I think my early hunch would be the alpha nerd, betting on the alpha nerd here. I just don't. I do think the layoff. Who knows what that means for Florida? Missouri doesn't have to pull an upset. There's a lot of room for that to just be, kind of just like a
35-24.
Yeah. There's a lot of ways that game could could play out where Florida comfortably wins and Missouri still covers. But I don't know. I really want to watch the Missouri-Kentucky tape a little bit more closely because I didn't watch a lot of that game, and the box score was like one of the best box scores of the weekend. Though there were some crazy box scores, and it may not be a ridiculous box score of Kentucky's season so far, considering what it put up against Mississippi State. But by the way, Kansas State box score is a beaut. But I do kind of want to see how Missouri did that because, hey, look, Kentucky, their offense is a little bit funky, but they're not bad. They're not a bad team.
That's an impressive win for Missouri. Connor Bazelak getting a little more confidence every time he comes out there. He's a stud too, man. He's been pretty impressive. Larry Roundtree toting the rock for 37 carries for 126, a very workmanlike 126. It's I think it's a game that's like I would not touch it from a gambling perspective. I think nothing would surprise me. Florida could come out and get beat and be like, "Yep, they probably didn't do anything for the whole 2 weeks and they came out flat. They couldn't find their continuity." Florida could go out and blow them out. Wouldn't surprise me. Like nothing would surprise me in this game. So like I have no feel for what you're going to get.
Oh, it's a great choose your own narrative game. No matter the result, it's like you've got a couple like choose your own adventure. Turn to page 5. It's this result. We can have our own narratives heading into the next game.
Can't wait until Thursday morning when we've got like lock infinity on Mizzou. We've gone from I'm not touching it to I don't know to oh yeah, Tigers money line sprinkles, all 4 of us.
Barton, either live tweet or at least live text your breakdown of Missouri Kentucky tape so that I can get a better understanding as to what 4 for 13 really looked like as a team. I want to know. I want to know if that was Missouri's defense or if that was Kentucky's offense. I would say that, like, realistically, that's probably where I'm at because I feel like I know where Missouri's offense is right now, but I don't have any good feel for Missouri's defense because the game it played against LSU, obviously it's like signature win, I guess you could say, was just such a weird Big 12 affair that
how many carries did you say Larry Round
37
in that game?
Right?
Yes, 37.
Kentucky had 36 plays. Period. He had more carries than Kentucky had plays. Oh, I love it.
Unbelievable.
Over the weekend, big recruiting news. Jaquinci McKinstry, a 5-star cornerback from Alabama, commits to Alabama. Crimson Tide, rich get richer. This is the number 1 cornerback in the entire country. A 5-star in the composite, a 4-star at 24/7 Sports, but still one of the top players in the country. Barton, what do you like about McKinstry? And is this was this a simple recruiting win for Alabama, just being able to get down into Pinson and get one of the top players in the state to get on board?
The 8th number 1 player in the state of Alabama in the last 10 years. For Nick Saban. I think it was an important get because when you look at Alabama's secondary right now, so Pat Surtain is a stud. He's about to be in the NFL draft. Josh Jobe is he's a junior. He could leave and get drafted pretty high as well, I would assume. And so I think you could be looking at a secondary next year. And I don't think there might be some guys, whether it's Marcus Banks or whoever it is in the depth chart at that cornerback position that could step up and be really good. But I don't think there's an obvious successor on the depth chart right now. So to get a guy like that, Kool-Aid McKinstry, who can come in and potentially compete right away is probably pretty important. This dude is a ball skills maniac, like fantastic hands, really good receiver, great basketball player. Is going to play basketball at Alabama too. And could probably play some safety, some star, whatever. So I think he's a little bit different than Pat Surtain in terms of just like he's more of a side guy than just like a polished straight out the box guy like Surtain was. But he is got really, really high ceiling and upside. It'll be interesting to see how quickly he can get on the field.
8 out of the last 10 was Justin Ross, one of those few that
That's right.
got away.
Justin Ross and George Pickens. Those are the 2.
Ooh. Both wide receiver. I mean, granted, wide receiver room in Alabama has been a little crowded. All right. Like if I'm a wide receiver, I might understand that there might be more opportunities elsewhere. Coming up on the other side, we take a look at some of the early lines for week 9. And as promised, your Noles to go following the Louisville game next. It's been a little too long. We're dusting it off. And you will continue to hear us talk about this because it's time to bring it back out. The mailbag's coming back. We want to hear from you. And for those of you who are mailbag veterans, for those of you who offered the suggestions that led to the creation and the establishment of Fernelli Tech, Barton A&M, DK State, and the CPU, yeah, that was from the mailbag. The incredible story about Barton's time as a bouncer at a Slayer concert. Yeah, that came from the mailbag. Like the best conversations and the best questions come from you, the listeners, and they come in from our mailbag. I was having a conversation with our podcast team, and they said, we survey the entire CBS Sports Podcast Network and all the different mailbags and all the different reviews where the questions are coming in. They said no one has more creative and more thoughtful questions than those for the Cover 3 podcast. And it's been too long. So it is time to dive back in there. For the new listeners, here's the way you do it. You go wherever you find the Cover 3 podcast and you leave a 5-star rating. Then in the review, you can say something nice. You can say something mean, but 5-star rating. And then in the review, put your mailbag question and we will throw it in the big old bag of mail, organize it, and we will put together some mailbag episodes. We're going to be doing a mailbag episode this week. The show will post on Wednesday. So you've got a couple days here to be able to get in there, fill out your question. Apologies for all of the COVID conference realignment proposals. We appreciate all of them. We probably had 30 plus individual listeners offering their own suggestions for COVID conference realignment. We are underway with the season. Thank you for offering those thoughts. But, now's time that we turn our attention to the season at hand. And listen, off the wall stuff doesn't even have to be about the season at hand. Again, you leave a 5-star rating and then you leave a review, and in the review, put your question for the mailbag and it will be addressed on a future mailbag episode. Mailbag back this Wednesday. Get your questions in now.
I want to take the time to thank all the listeners that 5-star reviewed and offered music recommendations during my summer of music exploration when I was really in a rut musically. Some of you guys have just god awful taste in music, and and yet I still very much appreciated your recommendation. And I also found it really interesting that we had several Steely Dan recommendations. I don't know what that's all about. I don't know why Steely Dan is sort of a Cover 3 podcast favorite. But more power to you. I actually had pretty intricate spreadsheet filled out where I was going to actually crown someone the winner of offering the best recommendation, but then the season kicked in and time got away. So, but it was much appreciated. Much appreciated.
Maybe we could put together a Cover 3 playlist on Spotify.
Ooh,
I like it.
We will submit it. I think we can probably put it together. That's a good idea. And Barton,
how are we gonna notate whose picks are whose, or just let the people figure it out?
Yeah, I think we try to go for as much of a blend or consensus as possible. I mean, the Steely Dan is awesome, and I'll tell you, Barton, the Steely Dan fans were there. It wasn't the Venn diagram had already crossed over. You just didn't know that so many Cover 3 fans were also Steely Dan fans. But the second that you ask for music recommendations, a Steely Dan fan will be quick to tell you to listen to Steely Dan too. Yes. I'm more of an Asia guy myself, but everyone's got their favorite Steely Dan album, and they, everybody tries to come and display some of their personality when they're talking about what their favorite Steely Dan jams are. But I you know, I'm more of an Asia guy. And again, just like that, Barton, I wasn't going to come out and be like, you got to listen to Steely Dan. But if you're going to ask, yeah, you should listen to Steely Dan.
So no wonder we have all these Steely Dan people on this podcast. You're a Steely Dan person. I didn't even know that. You're a Steely Dan guy.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I'm not going to browbeat somebody and like yell at everyone saying that they have to listen to Steely Dan.
You're the only one who doesn't, because you're right about Steely Dan fans. It's like them and Fish fans. They're like the CrossFitters of music fans in that it always comes up within the first 2 sentences of talking to them that they like that thing or they do that thing.
Hey, nice to meet you. I'm a big Steely Dan fan. How you doing?
My name's Barton. I love Steely Dan. What are you doing here?
I used to do the in-house PA. I did for about maybe 7 years. I did the in-house PA at the North Carolina High School Athletic Association state championships for soccer. I would do the boys in the fall, the girls in the spring, and you know, you do all the like 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A. It's a full day full of games. And there was a high school beat writer named Alex Bass from Apex who loved Steely Dan. And for all of these 7 years, the theme music in between games at the North Carolina High School Athletic Association soccer state championships was Steely Dan. And we just played it in the Wake Med soccer park, just getting things going. People like the Steely Dan. What can I say? All right, let's turn our attention to the weekend ahead. Some of the early lines. We already mentioned Florida is a 13-point favorite against Missouri. We are all going to say beware for right now, and then we'll be back on Thursday, probably all with angles backing the Alpha Nerd. Tom, you mentioned 11 was the opener for Wisconsin until the Graham Mertz news came out. That's come down to 7.5. I was listening to Scott Frost talk about his team. And it seems like, and this just might be Scott Frost talking, but it seems like Scott Frost feels all right about the way his team competed against Ohio State. And it seems like there's at least a little bit of optimism in terms of, you know, where they are. I would say the things that I liked, you know, the dual quarterback attack is very intimidating. I think that at wide receiver, they're starting to build out a little bit of depth. And I felt like the defense played all right. I mean, they were getting after it. In terms of the defensive front and trying to cause some problems for Ohio State's run game. So, I mean, even at 7.5 with some of that value gone, I don't know. I'd be very, very tempted to take Nebraska to win that game, to cover that spread and maybe even win that game outright. Where are y'all at with the Cornhuskers?
I don't know, man. I feel like Nebraska's getting a lot of credit for a 52-17 loss.
They got boat raced.
I'm not. This is a judgment on myself. Also, like I've been there. Oh yeah, the run defense is pretty good. Yeah, like that offensive line, well, better than I thought. Like it's like wait a minute. They just got beat by 35 points. So, maybe you're right, but I'm not going to talk. I am not going to talk myself into Nebraska until I see them like really compete for 4 quarters.
You just did the Dabo Sweeney. Am I on the right press conference?
Reverse Dabo.
I thought we won. It's like, Chip, are you talking about the team that just got beat 52-17?
I'm in the right press conference, right? We just got our ass beat by 35 points, right? What's the negativity? Give me a little negativity here.
Well, to be fair, they only lost by 28 because when Ryan Day apologized for that final touchdown, it no longer counts.
That's right.
Fair.
Ohio State, meanwhile, 13-point favorites on the road against Penn State. And that feels like a trap begging me to take Penn State.
And that opened at like 9.5 in some places, and it quickly went up to 13.5. Yeah, that's a really interesting line. A couple other lines that stood out to me that are at least worth talking about is one, Barton's beloved Northwestern Wildcats opening up as a 3.5-point favorite on the road against Iowa. That's now been down to 2.5. That, based on what I saw on Saturday, that looks juicy. Another one for our boy Coca here. West Virginia is favored at home against Kansas State for some reason. I can't really figure that one out. And then another interesting line to me, which might be a surprise considering their records, but shouldn't be a surprise if you've been paying attention. LSU, a 3-point favorite on the road against Auburn.
Is that concerned about? I mean, I'm selling all the Auburn stock unless you think that. Okay, all right. Like
Tom, you're saying you would have thought that line would be bigger? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just surprised that based on the way LSU has played this year, because, the narrative surrounding LSU it's been a huge disappointment. And Auburn is, at least, it hasn't been great, but it's got a winning record and it's at home and it is a home underdog to LSU. I was surprised to see that.
TJ Finley, baby. This is the new era. We're all go with the new starting quarterback. I'm on board. I would take that. I don't know. What else stands out?
Really close to being a 1-win team, aren't they? I mean, they had the Kentucky call go their way. They probably win that game. The Arkansas game, they should have lost. And this last one, they had another call that absolutely helped them. So when you look at Auburn and see 3-2, that could easily be 1-4. Now it's not because of the refs, but I think that, and I liked Auburn before. Like I'm not going anywhere near Auburn. I kind of like LSU in this spot.
Let's not blame the refs. It's Auburn Jesus working his miracles through the refs.
That's right.
But I will say, the way that Gus things normally go, I am very tempted to be all over Auburn +3 this week against LSU.
Because everyone's going to be loading up on the now. This is when everything comes crashing down. This house of cards has just been built on controversial endings, and here comes LSU.
So, I will interject here about the Auburn stuff. I do, yeah, for real, they absolutely could be 1-4. The thing about it though is, I think a lot of people are clinging to these the refs are bailing them out deals, and failing to acknowledge what those calls were, where those bailouts happened. The bailout at Arkansas was, they should have given them there should have been a fumble, but in normal games, you also just clock the football and it's not a big deal. Like in the punt return, in the punt that was touched, was recovered in the end zone by, they should have called it touch the Auburn guy, and there should have been a point for Ole Miss. But in most games, the guy didn't really touch it in an impactful way. And so I think
he touched it. It could have been. And now, granted, there was a lot of. There were still 5 minutes left. Ole Miss defense still had to make some stops, so it's no guarantee. And I'm not chalking these all up. I'm not saying 1-4, but they still had a massive impact on all those games.
Absolutely. And my point is, because I think the statement is true. They could be 1-4, or whatever it is. I guess my point is, I think you got to be careful, because a lot of these plays, they got these fortunate breaks, were not representative of Auburn making a bad play from a skill standpoint or an ability standpoint. They just sort of got unlucky themselves, and then lucky that the refs missed it or whatever it is. So I don't know. Auburn is, I say that, and I was sort of led into that and just thinking we're Auburn Jesus has bailed him out a lot, but we call it Auburn Jesus because Auburn Jesus is always there. And
he works
Gus Malzahn's, it's not like he might not get bailed out again by Auburn Jesus again. So I don't really know what to make of the game. And I just think that it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting.
Those 2 footprints in the sand, that's where Auburn Jesus carried you. But here, I got a question for you, General Simmons.
Yes.
UCF at Houston, the total is 79.
Oh, man. Whew. I don't know. Are you going to bet the under?
Absolutely.
I mean, I just want to know what General Simmons is telling the troops. We got a total set at 79. Clearly, we have to go over, right?
My troops are morale is low right now after an 0-2 weekend for the Over Army. So I don't know. We'll have to regroup, get a game plan. It sure would be that sure would be nice for morale if we could hit over 79. We'll see.
Well, here's another fun total, I think, for the Over Army, which could boost morale. And because this one is this is the Venn diagram of the Over Army with the dentist on one side and Nashville on the other. It's Ole Miss versus Vanderbilt. The total's at 62.5. That might be the lowest total we see in a Rebels game all season long.
I saw that too. I saw the 17 points, and that was
what I was wondering. Do we just is it going to find Vanderbilt back in action? Ole Miss playing with even more confidence. They've been a really nice surprise. Can Vanderbilt score? Can your true freshman quarterback? Can he put up some points on Ole Miss defense? I'm tempted to jump on this one early and just lay the 17 and say find Vanderbilt. It's been working for Kansas. It's the same philosophy.
The that Kansas line, by the way, this weekend, the Jayhawks are in action at home against Iowa State, 28.5 for the Kansas check.
I think we've reached the point where I'm ready to jump on Kansas.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's free access yardage anymore with 28.
What number would you start to get nervous about for Michigan State? Do y'all know what it is? Have you looked it up yet?
I do. I'll let them guess first.
Oh, I just found it.
Yeah.
I'll let Barton guess.
Let's see. Is it 27?
It might be by kickoff.
What is it now?
25.
All right.
Who's Rutgers playing, by the way? Speaking of, is there any Rutgers play this weekend?
Well, let's see. Rutgers is at home against Indiana. Let down. Rutgers is plus 13.
I kind of like it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I think that Michigan. I'm prepared to lay 25 against Michigan State, but I'm also ready for it to be the wrong spot. If that game was not in the Big House, I'd be a little bit more nervous about it. Maybe. I don't know. Rocky Lombardi's awful. What we have? Big House overs, wasn't it? Michigan home overs is a principle that's pretty time tested, at least in the Jim Harbaugh era. But
yes,
I don't know if I'd be ready to ask much of Michigan State at all. I think I do feel okay about laying 25. I think I would take it up to 28. I mean, that's an overreaction big time, but Sparty may be 0-8, 0-9. Worst team in the Big Ten, kind of bad.
I mean, y'all's boys at Rutgers were the beneficiaries of 7 turnovers.
Yes. Yeah.
7 turnovers.
They're playing defense, though. You got to force some of those turnovers.
No, 5 of them were fumbles.
5 were fumbles, yeah. Here's one based on what we saw on Saturday. Friday night, Minnesota, who's probably still going to be missing at the right side of its offensive line. Might be missing its starting kicker, might still be missing its starting punter, because, again, we don't know the exact reason why any of them are out, or perhaps when they found out the exact reason why any of them are out. So we don't know how much longer they're out. But Minnesota is on the road against Maryland, and it is a 20-point favorite. Maryland, I mean, do any of us have the stones after watching the way Maryland looked against Northwestern to sack up and support the Terps? So 3 touchdown dogs at home.
Tanner Morgan looked a little off against Michigan. The perfect prescription might be playing Maryland for him to get right. I don't have the stones. Do you all have the stones?
I don't have the stones.
I'm happy that there are 3 other games on Friday night, so I don't have to make that the Twitter tip of the day.
Oh, okay. I didn't want to let this one lose our attention, because there is a top 10 team who would like to fancy itself as a college football playoff contender. I don't think any of us are going to call them a college football playoff contender, but there is a top 10 team that is undefeated that has flown a little bit below the radar. Some of it is because, like we mentioned earlier, with Florida and some of these other teams, you miss a week because the game gets postponed. You kind of fall off the radar. Cincinnati is a 6.5 point favorite at home against Memphis. Cincinnati has so far in its 2, I guess, toughest games against Army. The defense was awesome, snuffing everything out. And then they just totally dominated at SMU, win that game 42-13. Again, I think they win on the backs of their defense in that one. With Memphis coming to town, you've got Memphis this week. You've got Houston the next week. There are opportunities for Cincinnati to continue to stack wins on wins and continue to at least be a factor in the college football conversation. Again, college football playoff conversation kind of depends on how you feel about the chances of any group of 5 team making it to the college football playoff by the end of the year. But the Bearcats are right there. They are without a doubt the top team in the American Athletic Conference. 6.5 is a little bit of a short number. Are you going to put the Bearcats on upset alert with Memphis coming to town?
Memphis beat them twice last year.
Yeah. I like Cincinnati, but I got to give this game some thought.
The answer is yes. Upset alert for sure. I mean, Memphis is Memphis is still really nasty on offense, and they can't stop anybody, but that's all right.
Brady White has played Cincinnati 19 times in his college career, probably, and he's like 18-1.
Yeah, Memphis has won 5 straight, although, I mean, only 2 of those wins in the last few years. Like the last one before it was like Tommy Tuberville versus, I think, Mike Norvell in his very first season. But, yeah.
59.5 the total. This might be an over Army special. We might have to get Barton to alert the troops. Even as good as Cincinnati's defense has been, Memphis is going to put up some points on them. Let's see. Did you see Texas and Oklahoma State? Texas is a 3.5 point dog against Oklahoma State. I don't know. I'm not buying in Oklahoma State just yet.
It's
Barton.
the time to turn it around.
What's your problem, man? What's the deal?
Hey, I'm just saying. I was worried about Spencer Sanders returning to the lineup, and that's pretty much what we got with Spencer Sanders returning to the lineup, and the offense didn't look that much different.
Yeah, you're gonna get some bad throws of Spencer Sanders from time to time.
Yeah,
I get it. It's pretty encouraging that defense continues to play consistently as well as it has. Yeah, I think the thing with that is just like Texas still isn't that good. Like even the Baylor game, like it wasn't all that impressive. So I don't know. I still think they're probably. I think they probably go 7-1, and they lose to Oklahoma, and then they play Oklahoma again
and lose that one.
We'll see on that one.
Early forecast for that game. Now we're 6 days out, but it's going to be windy.
I like that for Oklahoma State better than Texas.
Nothing's better than going into a weekend knowing the forecast and the confidence it can give you in taking that under and just riding that wonder train. And it's the same kind of confidence that you might have if you've got the perfect outfit put together thanks to Express, because when you put together the different pieces from Express, they can get you from your most fancy work or social occasion all the way to just, feeling comfortable and kicking your feet up at the end of the day, because they've got all day comfort where it feels like your favorite sweatpants. It's got that extra stretch, but at the same time, it's flattering fit and it works well for all kinds of occasions. And when we talk about wearing it all day, it's not just the style in terms of being able to work in different occasions. The wrinkle-resistant fabric makes it great to be able to travel all around town or all across the country. It's got extra stretch that goes along with the all-day comfort, and that is what you can do in order to be versatile and not have to be stressed out about all these different outfit changes that you need. So you don't have to worry about outfit changes. You can feel confident, and that's going to help you go about your goals. It's going to help you be in a position to succeed. And what you can do is you can get $25 off a $50 purchase from Express by texting football to 397-737. Again, $25 off a $50 purchase from Express. Text football to 397-737. Whether it's work, whether it's social, whether it's casual, nothing will beat the all-day comfort and versatility of Express. So get $25 off a $50 purchase. Text football to 397-737.
Speaking of looking good in football, you know who looks good right now?
AC Milan.
AC Milan just took a 1-0 lead 2 minutes into the match.
Let's go. Order for Danny.
Now I got to watch it. Dang it.
Order for Danny. Order for Danny.
All right. It's only a lock unity, though. Barton didn't want to make it a lock infinity.
Blame Germany from 2008 or whatever it was.
All right, Danny. The trap spot, the letdown spot.
Yeah.
We signaled the alerts. We had the alarms, and sure enough, Florida State showed up and the defense gave up explosive plays. By the time they even got things rolling, it was already like 21-0 in this game. How is, first of all, your assessment of the game itself, and then also, of course, as always, the pulse of Nole Nation.
So I thought this game could go one of two ways. I thought Florida State could win the game outright potentially if they kind of carried some of the momentum from the North Carolina game. Or I thought, you know what? They might have pulled out all the bag of tricks that they had offensively with Jordan Travis and used them against North Carolina. And then once you get a little bit of a deeper dive on this offense, you see, man, this thing really has its limitations if you take away the run game from Jordan Travis. And I thought you saw that. Biggest disappointment to me was the defensive side of the ball. Like, this is a defense that has played pretty tough. They haven't quit on, Mike Norvell. They played pretty tough, and they got run over for 291 yards rushing. Like, that's an embarrassing performance. There's one or two ways I think you can treat this game if you're Mike Norvell. First is that I've been in these situations. I've been on bad teams, not in Tallahassee, but in the NFL, I was on a lot of bad teams. The coach can go one of two ways. You can either go the hard coach, and this is where typically when you watch film after a game, you have a big team meeting, kind of go over a big picture, and then you split up. The offense watches it with offense, and you might even split even further, and the quarterbacks only watch the tape with the quarterbacks, and the offensive line watches the quarterbacks, or the offensive line. Defense watches it with their position groups, and everybody splits off. But when you've been in a bad situation, Dan Reeves was notorious for this when I was with him with the Giants or the Falcons. If it was a bad game, the whole team would be in one room, and you basically get one big ass chewing all at the same time. And so you're sitting there, and film sessions are already kind of like, especially if it's a bad game, you're like, I don't want to watch this game. Like, I got to sit through this again. So now not only have to watch the offense, you have to watch the defensive side of the ball too. So I think that's option A for Mike Norvell. Bring everybody in there, expose everybody. This is what sucked. This, you got beat here. This was unacceptable. And you just chew basically everybody in the room out, and everybody's put on blast. Like, that's one. Or you could go in a different direction, and you could do, I forget who it was. Bart might be able to help me. One of you guys might be able to help me out. Is you go with this one. You get everybody up in the team, and you act like you're going to go for the big ass chewing. Hey, we're going to ream everybody. And instead, take the tape. It's hard now. Now you might pull it up on the now you put it up on the screen, and you hit delete, and you say, this game didn't count. We're erasing it from our memories. We're moving forward. We're putting this one past us. I don't know what Mike Norvell, what personality he is. I feel like this team probably is at a place where they're very immature. They could use a little tough love, but also they're fragile. So maybe you say, this game doesn't count. We're just going to throw it out and move forward. But I think those are the two options, because there's not much else you can do with this game except look at it as what it was, and it was ugly.
I'm chewing ass.
Columbia, Yale, 2001, sophomore safety Barton Simmons drops 2 balls that would have been pick sixes. Ooh. We lose to a bad Columbia team. The next day, we're sitting on the curb getting ready to watch the film we don't want to watch, and Coach Flanders, our D coordinator, says, you guys are done. Don't need to watch that tape. Head on home. So that's the one time we've gotten that treatment.
It's kind of like awesome though, because then you get the day off. So you're like, yes, I was going to go super old school where they take it and they bury it, where they bury the tape and like put it in the ground and bury it because it's gone. But you can't do that anymore because there's no tape.
You could destroy a laptop. That's what I think would really drive it home.
Office Space style.
Yeah. It's just like, you know what? We're not doing anything with this tape. And then you just slam a laptop on the ground. I mean,
yeah. You know what I was really bummed about though? Because I was, hey, okay, Chubba Purdy, maybe we'll get a little glimpse at him.
0 for 9.
Yeah, not even a completion. So it's kind of like there really wasn't a bright spot. That's why I think you burn this tape. You don't even look at it.
I didn't get to see any Chubba snaps. Did he look all right?
I got to go back and watch this game. I've been of the mindset of let's burn the tape, but I want to go back and see just how bad it was. And I do want to watch Chubba and see exactly how he did.
The Chubba thing is interesting because he was always going to be, he was physically ready. He was athletic. He's a big, strong kid, but I've never seen him throw in person, but on film in high school, even though he was very productive, he's got kind of a funky delivery. He looks like he's a little bit raw as a passer. So I'm not surprised if he were to come out there and just like the pass game element of his game isn't top notch yet. I would have envisioned more of a Jordan Travis type of impact, even if he were to play more of a run game guy. But that's interesting. 0 for 9 is not good.
Not good.
Reminder, we will be opening up that big old bag of mail on Wednesday. So you got some time to go and leave a 5-star rating and a review. In that review, you put your question for the big old bag of mail. We will address it on the upcoming mailbag episode. You can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fernelli. You can follow him at Danny Kanell. You can follow him at Barton Simmons. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.